I can show you guys what that video looks like.
Talk to a lawyer. I mean, we can record it, but before I distribute it anywhere.
Okay. Like that when I was your age, I didn't need all these fancy things when I was your age. Just kind of kept boiling over, and they never agreed on anything. It was just like, we didn't really need their help to do anything. We're just like, so we'll just pay for it ourselves and all that kind of stuff. And it was just back and forth. And I think maybe my mom just never thought she was good enough. She always thought she was hiding something from me. But she always thought Shanann was hiding something? Like what? Stuff from her past, or oh, I see. Yeah.
So there's conflict at a barbecue when all the families got together. And the first, maybe a barbecue with Shanann put together for everybody to meet each other.
If you haven't seen the video, it is probably personally, I feel like one of my best Chris Watts videos. I am a former journalist, if you're new to my channel. So that means I request my own reports, I produce my own content, and I do my own research. I do my own interviews. I book my own interviews. I take what I do really seriously. Due to some health issues, I had to leave the news industry. And if you know me, you know why. And we do talk. We have a lot of people on here who have autoimmune diseases and other cancer survivors. This exclusive layered voice analysis where we take Chris Watts' confession from the CBI, and then we take the Chris Watts porch interview and we analyze that with some really high-tech technology that is 98% accurate, more accurate than a lie detector test. Patty Productions just did a review of that video, and thank you, friend, for kindly doing that and bringing some of your subscribers over to my channel. By Cherlyn Cadle. This is the cover of the book. Have any of you read this out of curiosity? So I'm not gonna lie, guys, I've read it twice. I dissected this book because it was firsthand accounts from Christopher. So I thought it was interesting. I'm going to play you audio clips from the book that I thought were interesting. There's going to be a lot of audio clips. So this video may go into a couple sections. It might be like 5 different videos where we cover chapters. So unfortunately, I cannot read the book to you word for word because of copyright infringement. I don't want to get in trouble. But if you want to follow along with me and take a look, I'm going to drop the link in the comments here of the book where you can go read it for free. There's some controversy that Cherlyn Cadle wrote this book and it's plagiarized. I do believe there may be parts of it that are plagiarized, but I also know she uses actual clips. Thank you, Carrie. She uses the actual letters from Chris in the book. So I will flip and we'll kind of look at the book pages, but also I'm going to play audio for you. So I'm going to begin with chapter 1. And in my notes, I have Chris says he wants his family to read this book so that they can understand what happened. Now, Cherlyn began writing Christopher right after the murders occurred, and her ultimate goal had always been to write some type of true crime story. And she reached out to Chris. Chris was her person. And for some reason, he decided to respond to her. So that's where we get the information in this book from. Okay. Cherlyn says that she also spoke to Cindy Watts, Chris's mom, and Jamie Watts, his sister, in order to write this book. And sometimes she used them to communicate. Yes. So Cherlyn Cadle appeared on Dr. Oz So the book, Carrie, if you want to take a look at it, it's right here in the comment section. I have it pinned. It is free and available. Yeah, I think you can still buy it on Amazon, but I read it for free. And you don't even have to read it. Don't worry about it. We're going to go over the best clips, and I'm going to break down if you remember in college, those little yellow books called Cliff Notes. I got you all covered. We're going to do the Cliff Notes. So this was a book that Chris helped with. He was okay with. Cindy Watts was okay with. Jamie Watts was okay with, and everyone helped get this book together. So in chapter 1, Chris's mom actually had to communicate in the beginning with Cherlyn Cadle because Cherlyn needed to get on Chris's visitor list. You have to think this incident just happened. People are trying to communicate with Chris, and she wrote him 2 times and he did not reply. And then finally on the 3rd time, he replied and said, Cherlyn, I decided I will do this book with you. However, I need you to give my testimony of how I was saved. So there's going to be a little bit of this and that, the religious stuff in there that Chris supposedly has turned to God. So let me know your thoughts on that. Jump in here and feel free to comment and chat, you guys. I like to have open discussion. So Cindy's, we go into chapter 2. Chapter 2 is a little more of information provided by Chris's mom. And she talks to Cherlyn Cadle about Chris, what he was like growing up. And this is what I have in my notes. Chris loved sports, and he never really showed much affection growing up, but he never caused any trouble. Cindy's mother would watch Christopher, and Cindy and her mother did not have a good relationship. However, Christopher and his grandmother really bonded. And this is important to me because later in the book, Chris gives an account of he saw 2 evil spirits, and they appeared to him in the form of his maternal grandmother. So that would mean he saw evil spirits of his grandmother, who he loved and got along with as a child, later on in prison. And if I could ask anything to Chris Watts, Cindy Watts, or Ronnie Watts, well, I mean, there's a lot of things I would ask, but one of them would be, why would Chris see something evil looking in the form of someone he loved growing up? And we'll get back to that in another chapter. So Chris grew up and went to a Baptist church. In this part of the book, Cindy talks about Chris as a child would have these OCD compulsions where he would be repenting and locked himself up in the bathroom. And he would do really odd things like that. Well, then later on down the road, he meets Shanann. We all know that. I won't kind of rehash the boring stuff. I will try to stick to the things that maybe you didn't know about in this book. So early on in the marriage, the 2 of them did not follow a religion. They did not attend church on Sunday regularly. Chris talks about their first interaction, their first date. We all know about that. He showed up like a fool wearing t-shirt and a flip-flops, and she was dressed to the nines. At that time, Shanann said she was dealing with lupus, and Chris was being very caring. So their relationship blossoms, and they move to Colorado for better opportunities. Cindy in this chapter also makes accusations that Shanann was drugging the children with Benadryl to make them go to bed earlier. That is kind of something that's all been out there, guys. Let's, be honest. My channel is an open-minded channel. We don't victim bash, but we also don't cover we don't cover up the truth. You can go for yourself and see a lot of these posts where Shanann does say she gives the kids Benadryl before bed. But in chapter 2 of this book, Cindy says it was used more so that Shanann could put them to bed early and have her own alone time. So getting into chapter 3, which I have up here on your screen, I will just kind of see if I can zoom in a little bit. And our friend with Patty Productions might drop by today. He might not. It's kind of late for him, but I sent him the link to jump up on panel if he wants to. So I'm going to go through my notes on chapter 3, and then we're going to listen to some audio clips from chapter 3. So chapter 3, Chris talks about how Shanann was working on Thrive and how beneficial it was for the family. If you go to Reddit, there's a lot of content about Thrive and how it was actually probably the worst thing that the family could have gotten into, because it did put them in financial ruin. So let's play some of that audio from chapter 3, and then I'll get back to my notes. Please let me know if you...
By telling him she wanted to give him a son, she knew she could get Christopher to feel bad for her. By telling him they didn't have any first together. She's trying to steal someone else's husband, and she is sad she doesn't have any firsts with him. She'd shared his first affair with him, but that wasn't enough.
Okay.
Did she think Shanann was ruining her life? Christopher feels this is when the idea to take the lives of his family began. He didn't want to, but knew it was going to happen. He did nothing to fight those feelings. Nikki had a group of friends.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Like I said, for copyright infringement, I'm not going to read the book word to word, but what I did is took clips, you guys, of every damn chapter that I thought was interesting, and I'll play those clips for you, along with my cliff notes. So, Chris, in this chapter 3, starts going into detail about Kessinger. Chris says once the girls left, he was free to do whatever he wanted with Nikki. He talks about her sending sexy pictures and dark things that went on at the apartment that he will take to his grave. So, do any of you guys have a guess on what those dark things are? Because I always wonder, to Chris, what are dark things? Because New Age could be crystals, and Nicole Kessinger was into geology and rocks and stones. And there are people in New Age who think stones have healing properties. I don't know why you guys look at, I got stones. I like stones. I wonder, does Chris think that that's dark things? Does Chris think yoga is dark? Does Chris think meditation is dark? That is another question that would be on my list of things to ask Chris Watts. What do you consider dark things? Again, he says, I was never looking for an affair. He spent all of July with Nikki. She made him feel bad by saying she wanted, as you heard in that last audio clip, I wanted to have a son. I wanted to have a first with you. And Chris says that this was the time he decided, I have to get rid of my family so I can be with Nicole, was when the topic of the son came up. So does that mean that there were open conversations, you guys? What do you think? Do you think that there were open conversations where Kessinger said to Chris, you need to get rid of your family so that we can be together? I feel